Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction interview for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 1, Episode 2. Can I start this video off with the hottest of takes? Maybe this isn't the hottest of takes. Maybe some people will agree with me.
hmm
Isabelle is my favorite new Walking Dead franchise character in years.
That is not a hot
Okay,
take.
I
She
didn't
is
know.
so good. And they did such a good job, like letting us really get to know her, like right when everything started. That whole scene at the
Yeah,
beginning and like it all unfolding in front of her eyes like that train going by
yeah.
with everybody turning, it was wild.
It was such a great reminder that this show doesn't need to be heavy-handed. They don't need to be obnoxious. They don't need to create some like over-the-top character that feels like a cliche. You could just sort of focus. I mean, we all know what this show does with some of that sometimes.
And there was one of those in this, and we will get to my hot take and my one real beef with this
Yeah.
episode later on in the video, but we'll leave it for later because there was a lot of this episode that was just it was really good.
Yeah, the backstory on Isabel, I think, was really well done,
Yeah.
well acted. I continue to love the way that they're using France on this show. It just looks different, and it's even little things like hallways or streets or car. It's just like these things we all kind of get very just sort of blasé about watching US TV.
Yeah, okay, you had a hot take last time that this was better than Dead City.
Yeah,
I'm starting to get on board with that.
welcome.
Thank you. I really liked Dead City a lot. I loved, the Maggie and Negan back and forth but this season so far of Daryl Dixon, it really is climbing the ladder and it's climbing it quick.
Well, as we climb upwards into all the other stuff going on here on episode 2, by the way, titled Alouette, be sure to join our Patreon. We have a link in the description
Mhm.
below for that. Every week we do a live stream over there.
Yep.
We're talking all about Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. It's a really fun time. We love doing this and hanging out with all of our patron supporters. So check that out in the description. Thank you so much to everyone who has so far.
Yeah, thank you so much. It really helps the channel and helps us to be able to continue on creating videos for you guys.
Okay, I will say this about the Isabel story. The moment that we found out that her sister Lily was pregnant, it was just like, okay, that baby's Laurent. Like that was not a surprise at all. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that it was.
No, it was not a surprise. And it was also actually not too much of a surprise that she had gotten bitten before she had given birth to Laurent. Like it felt like that's where this was going. However, the way that it was revealed and the way that the story was told, that was a 10 out of 10. It didn't matter that I felt like I knew where this journey was going to take us. The
Yeah.
journey was really good. Like seeing the panic with Isabelle, and, like grabbing her sister, finding out that she even is pregnant. She had been hiding this for a really long time,
Yeah.
7 months, and this whole sort of even backstory with Isabelle of how she was kind of making her money, that she was like a party girl and she was stealing watches and credit cards and all kinds of stuff to kind of get by, to see from where she was to where she is like it's so crazy.
It all made sense. Like that is the most important thing. And this is an analogy that I'll say here because we cover only murders in the building here at the
Yeah.
channel. And I'm not going to spoil season 3 for those who haven't seen it, but we've had a lot of these debates over and discussing that show where it's like, do we need to be surprised at the end of a story if the journey that we have to get from point A to point B is satisfying? And we don't. We
No.
don't need a surprise. And it's not a surprise that Laurent is the nephew of Isabel, but what's so effective about it is because of the way that Lily gives birth and because of what Isabel saw and all the circumstances leading up to this moment, it explains and informs how this child feels like a miracle. And I think that really speaks to why Laurent is like the chosen one now all of a sudden.
He is a miracle child.
Yeah.
I mean, what an incredible birth. Like to have, your mother has turned and
Yeah.
is, kind of considered dead at this point, and you are a miracle child. Like it's amazing. And now this is where I think a lot more of the comparisons I'm sure are going to be coming in with The Last of Us. That's like, is he the chosen one because he was born where his mom had already been infected? Is there something about him? Could he be a cure? I if that is where they're going with this story, I still don't feel that there are comparisons with The Last of Us. And I'll put my hard hat on for that because I know everyone's going to be like, "What are you talking about? It's the same thing." It to me, it's not the same thing. You've got someone that's a blood relative that, has been born into this, over there. It's like, she was bitten and it was
Yeah.
a bit different. So for me, it's a bit different.
And Laurent also grew up surrounded by a certain degree of love in this
Yes.
Abbey. I think that's very different than the backstory of Ellie on The Last of Us.
Yes.
And and that's what makes, I think, the Laurent character so interesting, is that he still has like a little bit of this childlike wonder because everybody has been lying to him this whole time.
Yeah, listen, that whole let go of the mule thing, I was like, Daryl, what are you doing? Like, you guys this is your transportation.
Yeah.
Your horse is saying, you can't go any further. Stop. There's a problem ahead. So your solution is, instead of turning the cart around,
Yeah.
is to just let your transportation go and hope for the best. I was just like, this decision doesn't seem that great. But yeah, they lied to Laurent about it. Oh, he's at the apple orchard. He's doing great. He's eating apples and living his best life. It's just kind of like, you at that point, yes, you've been lying to Laurent his whole life, but he's been in a protected environment for that.
Yeah.
What are the chances he's going to run across his mule again? 100%. That's what happened. But,
Yeah.
In reality, it's not that great. So Isabelle, I'm sure, was like, oh, he'll never know. But they're on this journey where they're meeting up with all kinds of new people. We'll get into the school and everything.
Yeah.
He's going to see some stuff. Like, it's time that he learns the truth about stuff.
Yeah. I feel like the moment that we saw the mule look at everything that was coming and the mule was like, nay, and then like took off, I feel like that's the point where you're like, okay, you know what, Laurent, let's sit down and have a conversation, because this is the first in a series of probably not great events that are going to happen to you over the course of this. You need to be prepared. You don't have to like say it in the most stern voice possible and be like, this is who you are, but you have to sort of start to lay a little bit of the groundwork, because I fear that they are setting this up so that when Laurent does know the truth, he's going to find out all of it at once. It's going to be sudden, harsh, and then he's not going to know what to deal with it.
Yeah, this is just my opinion. He's a bit old to be finding out about this stuff now. Like, yeah, he's a young guy still, but he's old enough to kind of know more of his background than this. Like, for someone who's the chosen one, they've sheltered him so much.
Yeah.
Like, of how is he really going to be able to get out there and help if he just doesn't know anything? And that's what I've been kind of hoping for this journey, is that he's going to really be learning a lot from Daryl. He's learning things on his own. They got captured by a group of school kids.
Yeah.
For what reason? I don't know. It just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, we captured Daryl and we got you guys. And what are we going to do with you? We're going to bring you in, serve you dinner, and tell you our backstory. I was just like, oh, okay. What was the real purpose of this here?
That is a good question. It's a sort of
Listen,
thing.
if I was like a child and I'm with a bunch of other children, I'm not capturing in a bunch of adults to come in to something that's really secure, especially
Yeah.
after they explained what happened with the lizard and that, it didn't go well, that they need to keep, everybody safe. They're going to bring in strangers. Like, what was it you were hoping to get out of this?
This is the only explanation I have in my head, and it's not a good one. They're kids. They're
Oh,
kind of dumb
right.
at times. I will say this. My favorite part of this whole society of children is that Mork and Mindy are somehow
I
the decree
know.
of things with not it's like,
So cute.
Robin Williams.
No, I loved that too because it did then, click in back with Daryl where he's like, "Man, yeah, me and my brother, we used to watch this all the time. This is something that really connects me back home." It's always really nice in the show to be getting those connections back with Daryl and his brother and family and all of that.
The setup to the Children's Society was not great. I will admit, I didn't mind like the actual kids as much as
Yeah.
I was really worried the moment I saw this. Like, okay, we're gonna have a bunch of really annoying children for like a good percentage of this episode. We all know that working with kids on shows can be really, really tricky, but there were some fun moments in here. I really was all about Father Daryl. Like, I think
I know,
we
right?
need Father Daryl to speak at just about every sermon possible. The funniest thing to me was that Father Daryl somehow thought that this was going to work after he said grace, and he gave probably the worst grace I think a father could ever give.
Hot take. I liked that grace. I thought it
It
was
was
pretty good. He didn't stumble through it. What he said was true, and that, yeah, things seem hopeless, but not tonight. I was just like, oh, that's actually pretty good. I was just like, how did, he get through that as well as he did? I thought it was gonna be listen way worse than that.
it was good for Daryl. Like
It
I
was good
liked
for
it as,
Daryl.
but it's sort of if I'm thinking he didn't recite any Bible verses.
No.
He didn't do anything that would make me think this man is a priest, but it was good.
Yeah, and it came out, of course, that he's not. So we get this sort of big story about the lizard who lives at the castle,
Yeah.
who went into town and took all the supplies like years back, sort of thing, or a while back. And this guy's been there seemingly for a pretty long time, it seems like. So, but they've tried to raid him before and it didn't go well. He's got some of their people and they're just like, "Oh, well, we're not going back." Daryl tells them this lie
Yeah.
that because they have their school teacher is sick, he's like, "Listen, this guy's probably got medicine that can help her." And, even though he knows that it's a lost cause, he needs a horse and the lizard has horses. Now, it was so cool to see the castle,
Yeah.
see the moat filled with walkers. I was just like, this is so cool. Like, I never thought I'd ever see anything like this in my lifetime.
The Once again, the geography is so cool on this show, and the entire scenery leading up to this, I think a lot of what happens around the castle in general is pretty it's I don't know if fun's the right word for it, but it was
Supply run.
okay, it was a step above the typical Walking Dead supply run. And you know why?
Yes.
It's a supply run in France. Maybe if we saw as many of these as we saw in The Walking Dead proper, I would roll my eyes at it.
I was wondering how long it was going to be until we was getting into a supply run. And the minute that he let go of their mule, I was just like, oh, they're going to need a supply run. Like, how are they going to get anywhere? This is a really long journey and you let go of your mule for no reason.
It's a horse run. This is the entire funny thing is that as enjoyable as this episode was, the story is really, we lost our mule, let's go find a horse.
Okay. We're going to put on my hard hat
Yeah,
here
all
for the
right.
comments because this is the part of the episode that I just like literally rolled my whole face at was meeting up with the lizard. I was like, okay, so who's this guy? He's an American. I'm an American. I was just like, oh God. Okay, listen, this is so cheeseball. Like we've seen this in,
Yeah.
depicted in a million shows and a million movies. It's all over social media all the time. I understand that there is this feeling around Americans. I am American. I'm also Canadian. I'm a
Mhm.
dual citizen. So is Matt,
Yeah.
for anyone new to the channel. That I've been living here almost 10 years. I have met zero people like this. I've been all over America. Zero people. I've been to Florida. I've been, to both coasts, New York, California, whatever. Texas,
Yeah.
zero people. And it's just, I'm not saying that though the people that are here, that there's no one here that's like, I'm an American. Of course there is. But is that the majority? It absolutely isn't. And my hard hat is on. You
Yeah.
can come for me in the comments. That's how I feel about it through my journeys through the United States, that it is a much smaller group, but for some reason,
Yeah.
television shows, news, movies, they really want to push the "but I'm an American" narrative harder than it really is down here.
Okay, here's what I'll say just about this is that I grew up in Texas. I lived there for really until I was 22, all the way through college. I have probably seen one person in my life like this, like
Yeah.
just one. And I went to some podunk places, people. I went to the sort of places where you would technically see, I'm an American, guys, just like all the time. People are people. People are not caricatures on this level.
Yeah, and the other just kind of weird thing about it
Yeah.
is if this guy's been there for like a fairly long
Yeah.
time, like, is he still going to be like, how dare you? I'm an American. It's just like, okay, like, stop.
That's the part of it I had the biggest issue with. It's just mostly that if you've been in France for a good period of time, it's not like we've already seen how rare it is to go from one, continent to the next in this, post-apocalyptic world. So for him to maintain that attitude at this point is a little bit surprising because I sort of feel like after the zombies show up, a lot of your allegiances kind of go out the window. And at a certain point, it's just like, okay, it is now the Republic of Dragon. It is now the Republic of Daryl. It's, you're basically your own country, your own government. You're doing whatever you have to do in order to survive.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there wouldn't still be some people that feel entitlement in this world. We've certainly seen that on The Walking Dead, but
Yeah.
it just felt really cheeseball to me. The minute that he was like, when he was like, "Oh, we're the same, we're
Yeah.
whatever," I'm like, okay, I get that. He's trying to be like, "Hey, don't kill me. Like, you're American, I'm American. Cool. Let's go. Like, I'll share my stuff with you. Let's figure it out together." But the minute that they were like leaving it down, like, how could you? I'm an American.
Okay, here's the thing I wish this episode gave a little bit more of. And of course, it's tied to the end of episode 1
Mhm.
where we started to get a little bit of a sense of what happened to Daryl on the boat,
Yeah.
who's hunting for him, like the larger sort of story that may be told here
Mhm.
about experiments. And there's really none of that here. And
No.
this, I know there's a season 2 already. I know they
Mhm.
don't have to rush any of this,
No.
but I would like to see a little bit of kind of a constant continuation, just so that we're as viewers kind of constantly reminded, okay, there is something else that's going on here just beyond like seeing a shadowy figure or an adversary here or there, which is like, okay, that's fine. I know still that we want to focus on Daryl and Isabelle and all of this, but I do want a little bit of a reminder of that.
I'm okay to not have it yet. Like I said this in the premiere that like the whole boat thing, that could have been a huge reveal at the end of the season because we know that we're getting into season 2. That season 1 is the whole journey to get there, and then he shows up and it's like, uh-oh, here's this boat and I did this stuff on this boat and now, I'm going to pay for it kind of thing. That would have been like a crazy reveal. I already know that it's coming up because we've seen it. The thing that I'm more like really lukewarm on is Corden and everything that's going on there, where he was at the Abbey. Here's the
Yeah.
I'm Daryl Dixon. This is my story sort of thing. The map is left up with the route that they're on. I just couldn't care less about him. We've seen this
Yeah.
character so many times, and it's nothing against the actor at all. It's just this character we have seen repeated over and over again throughout the show, like throughout the whole franchise of sort of this, vigilante guy is kind of trying to run things and, he's trying to get revenge. And, I don't need to see him on their heels. There could be enough threats along the way. It's episode 2 ran into the lizard,
Yeah.
like I want to see what the journey is with Isabelle, Laurent, and Daryl as they're going through to sort of run into other people and what it's all about. It's really for me about Laurent's journey, like seeing him with the other kids where he's telling this story and they're like, "Oh, sure," like sounds like the Count of Monte Cristo, like get out of here, like somebody's lying to you. Those are the types of things that I really want to see. I want to see this kid who's really sheltered, who's
Yeah.
supposed to be the chosen one, who was born from a walker. Like how incredible is that? To sort of learn to grow from being a sheltered kid to a young man.
It's a hero's journey, if you will, in
Mm,
a interesting and bizarre sort of way where all these other kids have kind of had to come of age in this zombie world and he
mhm,
still hasn't. So it gives kind of this fish out of water story. And then you're adding Daryl to it, where Daryl, he's a fish out of water in the sense that he's in
mhm.
France, but he also knows how to deal with zombies, which is good because he fell into that mode at one point, and it was just like if you were anybody else, Daryl, you would be a goner. I I will say this, moving into the future, we saw that map and they're clearly heading up to Paris.
Mhm.
I cannot explain enough how much excitement is bubbling up within me to see Daryl and everybody else in Paris. It's just like, are you what is the society going to look like there? Is there any we can get kind of like a tiny piece of maybe what we saw in Dead City, but I know we're also probably not staying in Paris forever.
Yeah, it's also going to be really interesting for Isabelle because we saw that she was in Paris when all of this was starting out and got away from there. So she saw it when it was right all breaking out.
Yeah.
So she's now returning back up there as well
All right. Well, we have to go and find a horse, but we will be back with
because we
more.
let it go for no reason. So we could go on a supply run, but we
That's
got a
right.
castle out of it.
We needed to give ourselves something to do. No, okay,
This was
well,
a really good
yeah,
episode. Like I said, I agree with you. I think that this is better than Dead City so far. I think the character development
yes.
for Isabelle and for Laurent, the supporting characters is way better, like way better. And the connection to, I know there's probably gonna be some out there when they saw, Daryl and Isabelle sharing a bed and whatever, they'll be like, oh, is it the romance? But it
Uh,
doesn't feel like it. It feels just like a genuine connection is growing there. Like it could it turn into something? I don't know. I hope not.
Yeah, I don't think that needs to be the priority. Like we know that Daryl can have really great intimate relationships
Yes.
that don't have to turn romantic. So I hope they continue down that road. I hope you guys continue down this road of watching the show with us and join our Patreon. We have discussions over there all about Daryl Dixon every single week. And thank you to those of you who are supporting us,
Thank you.
and we will see you here next time.